It's very important to understand that I'm not giving medical advice. This should not be interpreted as medical advice in any way. I'm sharing my research and I'm sharing my experience. So I have a story with EMFs and which I'm going to go into. So this is in no way medical advice. Just want to be absolutely clear on that from the beginning. So here's an overview of today's presentation. Firstly, I'm going to talk about why I'm talking about this, why I'm here today talking about EMFs, electromagnetic fields. I'm going to talk about the controversy, what causes cancer, the science, the EMF science, you know, these 4 lines of evidence linking EMF exposures to cancer. I'm going to be talking about the landmark studies, yeah, so the big studies that you should know about. I'm going to also be talking about EMFs on wiring and dirty electricity, this phenomena known as dirty electricity, which few people know about, few people really understand. And I'm also going to be sharing solutions because that's really a very important part of what I do, and it's important to know right at the outset that there are solutions to this whole EMF question. So let's get started. So firstly, why am I talking about this? Well, I'm talking about this because I had an experience one day with my cell phone back in 2002. I put the cell phone to my head and I started to experience these rather bizarre symptoms initially that very quickly turned into debilitating symptoms just over the course of a few phone calls. And, you know, people say to me, well, Lloyd, how did you know it was your cell phone? Well, it was like, you know, cell phone next to the head, extreme pain, cell phone away, no pain. And this started with my cell phone, and then it developed. I was also getting a reaction with my computer, with my TV, with the radio in the car, and even with the corded landline. So this was like nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, and it really kind of threw me for 6. And through the medical profession also, because I went to consult I went to consult my doctor, who sent me to numerous specialists, and basically the medical profession had no answer, had no solution really, and had very little understanding of this whole EMF question. So there were these immediate symptoms which I was experiencing, which were, you know, like the prickly skin, the hot head, the hot ear. And I'm sure that some of you that are watching that know what I'm talking about. You've experienced symptoms maybe when you're holding your cell phone, experiencing a tingling feeling when you're holding it, or maybe you're not well around Wi-Fi, or maybe you get brain fog. You know, could be unexplained symptoms. And I was lucky because I made, you know, I put the 2 and 2 together to make 4, because it was so clear, you know, the reaction I had to my cell phone. So I knew it was the cell phone. And then this put me on a course really over 10 years figuring this out and getting my health back on track. Really, for 2 years I was totally in the wilderness and thought I was going crazy. That's just by the by. But so this was back in 2002, and the good news is today there is a lot more information about this, although it is all rather confusing. And you know, so I'm going to hopefully remove some of the confusion here today. And just to say very briefly that this story has a happy ending, because I'm no longer hypersensitive. So I do still feel these EMFs, but I'm not getting the debilitating symptoms which I did. And so that's the good news. So what you should know is that about 5% of the population, and these obviously estimates, 5% of the population has symptoms which they associate with EMFs, and then about 35% have symptoms, but they don't realize EMFs are the cause. So what I'm saying here is that there are a lot of people who have diverse symptoms, and the symptoms are very because we're talking about cancer here today, but the EMFs impact the human body in every way imaginable, and there are thousands of studies on this. We're just focusing on cancer, but just know, you know, it's not just EMFs and cancer. Okay, so I've chose this topic because it's the big one, but there's much more to this than that. And so it's really the kind of the bigger picture is all these symptoms which EMFs can create, notably like brain fog, like fatigue, neurological symptoms, neurodegenerative symptoms, and the links between these exposures and a long list of diseases, not just cancer, but Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cardiovascular disease. Honestly, you name it, the list is very, very long indeed. So again, why am I talking about this? Just to be clear, so even if you're not experiencing symptoms, then know this, and this is that EMFs impact everybody. This is what the science is telling us. Okay, so even if you can't feel anything around EMFs, don't think that EMF, you shouldn't be you shouldn't be looking at this and addressing this for you, yourself, and your family, particularly if you've got kids, which is super important. And that's actually the reason that I started talking about this, because I'm a father, and the effects on children are worse. Children are more vulnerable than adults. And the second thing to understand is that these effects are cumulative. And again, this is what the research is saying, that the effects are cumulative. So the more you're exposed, the worse it gets. And that's what makes it very difficult to reverse this trend. And the third thing is that, so the research links these exposures to, lots of serious diseases, as I said, including cancer, which is what we're going to look at specifically today. So there is controversy behind this whole topic, and the controversy, there's various aspects to this controversy, and I don't particularly want to go into the controversy, but there is a lot of, there are reasons why this information is not being shared, which is not widely known, and it is to do, a lot of it is to do with money, and a lot of it is to do, EMFs are very powerful, have these effects on the body, and how the whole economic system is kind of, even though you might not realize it, because EMF, selling off these licenses, which the governments are doing with the 5G and so on, and they've been doing up until now with the different generations of mobile technology, that generates a lot of money. And so that is one of the reasons why people are being kept in the dark, because the governments more than ever need money. And there is a lot of evidence here, which I've shared in my book, about this whole controversy side again. So, but just understand this about the controversy. So what the telecoms industry, what our governments are saying basically is that ionizing radio, there's, you can imagine we've got an electromagnetic spectrum, and there's a line down this electromagnetic spectrum, and the electromagnetic spectrum, all that is to say that it's really every kind of electromagnetic field that we can imagine. So when I say electromagnetic field, I mean a force which is out. This is the easiest way to think about it. So there are natural and non-natural, and it's all on this spectrum. That's just how we understand it. It's on a spectrum of frequencies. And when we talk about EMS, we're talking about frequency and wavelength. So I'm just giving you a very, very quick overview. I don't want to get bogged down in the detail, but the controversy is what we're saying. The problem, if you will, is that our governments are saying, well, there's a line, okay, that on this spectrum, and everything to the right of this line is dangerous, and that's the ionizing radiation, which is the things like the medical X-rays and the radioactive sources and the gamma rays and so on. So all that is, and everybody's agreed on that is dangerous, and that, but then everything to the other side of this line all of a sudden is not dangerous. And we're talking about this notably radio frequency, this microwave radiation, these electric fields and magnetic fields, when we're talking about these different man-made. And I can see somebody's going through the slides here, so that's great. So you're pointing out exactly to what I'm talking about here, which is, I mean, just from a common sense point of view, like imagine, that we could have a line, and everything to one side of this line is dangerous, and everything to the other side is safe. that really, does that make sense to you? You know, nature just does not work like that. It just does not work like that. So that is a controversy in a nutshell. So, and what this controversy means, so what you need to understand is, so even though you cannot feel these exposures, that your cells can, and your cells are in distress. And this is what I want you to understand, is that these EMFs are a silent killer. You know, this is what the research is suggesting, and there is a lot of research on this now, independent studies. That's what I'm talking about.